Good evening, YouTube. It's Tired Metalhead Weatherman. This is Monday, May 2nd, and we have a severe weather outbreak that's beginning to unfold here in the Midwest. There's even a few severe reports around the Southeast as well. We have tornado reports ongoing in Kansas and Oklahoma, and maybe more to come tonight. We have some significant hail already being reported, and there's still several hours of this threat to go. We have several tornado watches, and we have a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms for tonight. This includes the chance of significant tornadoes. So let's go into this real quick. And basically, in the video, we're going to talk about the next 3 days, but pretty much right around north central Oklahoma and into southern Kansas. That's the area of greatest concern. So look at our tornado threat. It's a small area, but there is now a 15% chance of a tornado, and also a significant tornado because it's under a hatched risk. So anywhere from just east of Woodward all the way past Tulsa, Oklahoma, and even heading towards Wichita, and unfortunately, I hate to say this, but Andover, you guys are in line for a threat of significant tornadoes. Wind threat's also incredibly high. We're at a 45%. So this also has a hatched risk area. So this means that not only do we have a chance of typical 60 mile per hour severe thunderstorm winds, we could even get up to about 70 miles an hour around these areas as well, maybe even higher. We have our big old 30% area that includes Oklahoma City, Norman, and even starts to push towards Springfield, Missouri. And then our hail threat off the charts as well, pretty much towards central Oklahoma and southern Kansas. Same areas in play. So we'll quickly take a look at what the radar will look like for that, but we're also going to talk about day 2 and 3, which is Tuesday and Wednesday. Tomorrow the threat takes a downtick, and I'm grateful for that, but we do have a slight risk of severe weather, this time for the Ohio Valley. Slight risk goes all the way towards Pittsburgh and drops as far south as Louisville, and even trying to get a little bit closer towards Bowling Green. If you're in the marginal, we have Cleveland. Oh, I forgot to mention Columbus. You're also in that slight risk, as well as Cincinnati. And my family in Springfield, definitely keep an eye out for this. But if you're in the slight risk, this pretty much almost includes the entire state of Kentucky, and then the western half of Tennessee, which includes the cities of Nashville, Jackson, and Memphis. So we'll have to watch this really closely. Tornado threat is significantly lower. Only a 2% chance amongst that slight risk area. Much better news than the 15% chance that we have going right now. And then wind threat, pretty much the entire severe weather area. You have a 5%, which is our marginal risk. In the brown, the yellow is a slight risk. And then the hail threat is a little bit lower as well. We have only 5%, which is a marginal risk for severe hail greater than 1 inch. So that being said, let's take a look at day 3, which is actually enhanced risk. We've been talking about this for a bit. Now we're finally beginning to get a better look, as we're getting in range of some of these short range models now, like the NAM, which is what we'll use tonight. Excuse me. So we have a enhanced risk in the same area, in a lot of the same areas that are getting affected tonight, which is kind of crazy. So we got Oklahoma City, Norman, and Tulsa back in play once again. This looks like it's a little bit further south, so maybe Wichita and Andover could be spared this time. Like, you guys are on the line of the slight risk, but you aren't in the enhanced risk, which is good news. So we also have the slight risk, which includes Woodward. Wichita, you're on the line. This could very well move up towards your area or move further away. Then we have Abilene, which is in there, as well as Wichita Falls, Texas. The marginal, we have Dallas, and we have Lubbock, Amarillo, and Midland in play for that. So we'll have to take a close look at that. We're going to briefly go over Wednesday. We're just going to look at a couple of things because we're still not really in range, but I've been talking about this day also for a little bit, so I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, if you know what I'm saying. So that's pretty much it for all we got here. So that's pretty much it as far as looking at outlooks. Let's take a look at what the radar will look like tonight and going forward, because we've already talked about Monday and Tuesday aplenty. So this is our upper level low that's causing severe weather right now. This is a little bit out of date at this point in time, so we'll move this forward a little bit further. And here's where our storms are. Obviously, we have a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system, which is allowing for these storms to have damaging straight line winds and also embedded supercells with tornadoes. We've had several reports, and there are ongoing tornado warnings right now in this area. So we're going to be watching that into the overnight. So move this along here, and we see this low start to go right towards the Ohio Valley region. And it's right in that little spot where you don't want it to be, right around that south and southeastern flank. So it's kind of riding on that warm sector right here. So basically, you have to watch for any storms that form up around here, especially later into the day, for potential severe weather, maybe even tornadic activity. This looks like an early day. This looks like we get a couple of rounds. We start out with a MCS that's going to go through, drop some rain probably, and then towards the evening hours, especially in Indiana and western Ohio, we'll have to watch for severe weather. You see a little bit on the line of storms, and there you go. There's our tornado threat. Like I said, right around the southeastern quadrant of these low pressure systems. That's what we always want to look out for, because there's always a greater amount of shear here than there is anywhere else. So move this along here into the late evening hours. This only picks up. The threat is marginal severe. This could potentially uptick, but I'm not too confident in that. There is a chance for a few isolated supercells, and that's what we're going to have to watch really closely. Like, look at that. Once we get into the late evening hours, there we go. Once we get into the late evening hours, this is what I'm watching for right around here. These little small line segments. Anything that really splits off from that could become really nasty. Into the overnight hours, Pittsburgh, you guys will be in play. I think the tornado threat will diminish greatly, and we'll start to look towards more of a damaging straight line wind threat. However, I do see that based off this sounding, there's still a marginal tornado threat. It's not zero, and it's not a very high tornado threat to begin with, but this just is a reminder not to let your guard down. So we'll watch this move further and further ahead on Wednesday morning. Severe threat diminishes with this, but then we have the MCS that's going to come through Oklahoma City beforehand. This could create a outflow boundary for these storms to pop up late in the evening on Wednesday, and this looks like it could have a very similar look to tonight's threat, quasi-linear convective system with maybe an enhanced tornado threat. When we get this far out, though, it's kind of hard to really get a good read on this kind of stuff. The models tomorrow will be very telling of what the hazard type, or the most likely hazard type will be. But yeah, you can see in there, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a it's a convection, maybe crapvection. It's hard to say right now. But the conditions are definitely favorable for all hazards. We got lapse rates, we got instability, we got dew points. And from the look at these wind barbs here, we do have sufficient wind shear. So we're going to have to watch this extremely carefully. So we're going to move this further ahead, and towards the end of the model run, things get really messy into the overnight. So this looks like this is going to carry into the overnight. It's going to be an overnight threat. Kansas, you're involved in this too, so don't let your guard down. I know I've mainly been clicking on stuff in Oklahoma, but this does involve you, and you need to be watchful. And see, there you go. Marginal severe threat, even into the overnight. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll take a quick peek at the low-level jet for the next few days. So let's go ahead and move forward here. Once we get into the overnight, it's not the most impressive low-level jet. We're still getting towards that 60-knot mark, which is more than sufficient enough for severe weather. I think a little bit later into the evening, once the threat will probably become more damaging. Straight line winds. Thank heavens that I think the tornado threat will start to really let off around this time. If not, this could become a huge problem. I think this is a little too far to the east, and also beware around the south central plains, because after this storm goes through, there is going to be a lot of wind energy associated with this low pressure, so it's going to be gusty and blustery the next couple of days, leading up to the storm system on Thursday. Good news is the fire threat around this area is going to be minimal, because the Gulf moisture is just going to come straight back. So we do have a very notable low-level jet that starts to go through Ohio into the afternoon hours tomorrow. And even a little small sector here where we're getting towards 55, 60 knots again. So towards western Ohio, I'm really going to be watching you guys close tomorrow. I think that tornado threat may ramp up slightly. You might get a 5%. You may even go up to an enhanced risk possibly for this. Because there is a sufficient low-level jet. There's plenty of energy there, and like I said, you're in the perfect position, right on the southeastern quadrant of that low pressure. So we'll look at that real close, and then going into Wednesday, we're already kind of seeing this low-level jet build in, and this only picks up into the overnight. I do think this upticks a bit, and there we go. Into the overnight hours, this is not what we wanted to see. We're getting towards that 55, 60 knot region, and we're also towards the end of the model run. So I do think there's room for this to increase. So whether it's tonight, tomorrow, or Wednesday, I'm gonna ask you, definitely stay weather aware and be prepared for rapidly changing conditions tomorrow in the next couple of days. So this is all I have for you tonight. This has been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. Again, stay safe, everyone, and have a good night. I will see you in the next video tomorrow.